right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Zoe Mills. I am the Adult Programming and Community Outreach Librarian at Tredyffrin Public Library. Thank you so much for joining me tonight for the second iteration of Introduction to Excel. Just so that everyone is aware, this session is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel shortly after the conclusion of this webinar. Please make use of the chat and Q&A function throughout the webinar to ask any questions you might have along the way. Before I get started, I have a quick announcement. All of us at the library have been proud and delighted to be able to serve the community in a multitude of ways throughout the pandemic. Virtual programs like this one, plus electronic materials, reference chat, curbside pickup, and more have kept the community inspired, engaged, and connected. But the pandemic has also caused a loss of revenue at our libraries and has increased many costs. Now it is likely that cuts to services and programs may come. If you can give any amount, we are very grateful for your support. You can click the link in the chat to donate tonight. So without further ado, let's jump into it. I wanted to provide a very short recap about what we covered during the first installment. If you were not able to make it during the live webinar or you were not able to catch up on the YouTube recording. We covered navigating the Excel 2013 interface, like where items are on the ribbon and what the backstage view looks like. We also covered cell basics, how to enter data, how to format and organize data, as well as creating and formatting charts or tables. Again, you can catch up on the first iteration by watching the recording on the library's YouTube channel. You can click the link in the PDF file that I sent out this morning to watch it, or you can head over to our YouTube channel. We're just Tredyffrin Township Libraries on YouTube. I'm going to go over the glossary that I provided during the first iteration. Just as a recap, I will be using a lot of these terms when we play around with Excel at the end of this program. So I just wanted to provide it as a quick reminder of some of the terms you'll hear. First is workbook, and that is the entire Excel file itself. And you can have multiple worksheets within one Excel workbook. And worksheets are also known as spreadsheets. You can have multiple worksheets nestled into a workbook. Rows and columns refer to how your cells are aligned. Rows are horizontal and identified by numbers, and columns are vertical and identified by letters. Cells are the rectangle or block that is the intersection of a row and column. Any data that you want to enter into your worksheet must be placed into a cell. Your cell address refers to the intersection, so it'll be displayed by a letter and the number of the column and row. So example A1 or C10 are cells. A1 is the intersection of column A, row 1. And C10 is the intersection of column C, row 1. Oh, I'm sorry, row 10. I jumped ahead. Cell range is a collection of cells that have been identified as a group based on a variety of criteria, separated by a colon. So for example, A1 to C1 includes all of the cells between A1 and C1. So that's A1, B1, and C1. Operator or symbols are or signs that indicate which calculation must be made. And we'll go over operators in a little bit. During this iteration, we're going to cover more complex formulas, and we have to understand an operator. And I'll explain a little bit more what the symbols or signs you should kind of have on your tool belt when you work in Excel. Functions are formulas that are pre-built into Excel. So we'll be using Autosum tonight, and Autosum is a pre-built function within Excel. And formula is a sequence inside a cell that is used to produce a value. Right, so I'm going to go over information about basic and complex formulas, and then at the end we will go over the assignment or practice that I sent everyone this morning. We are going to balance an imaginary checkbook in Excel, and we'll use the skills learned in this class, which is just basic and complex formulas. So first I mentioned operators. Again, Excel uses standard operators for formulas, such as a plus sign for addition, a minus sign for subtraction, an asterisk for multiplication, a forward slash for division, and a caret for exponents. And you can have this little table handy whenever you're working in Excel. It's basically what you would use on a basic calculator. So if you use the calculator on your computer, it'll be the same operators that you use on your calculator. All formulas in Excel must begin with an equal sign. This is because the cell contains or is equal to the formula and the value it calculates. I know it seems a little weird to put the equal sign first, but without that equal sign first, Excel cannot calculate your formula. So be sure to always put that equal sign in before you type in your formula. While you can create simple formulas in Excel manually, for example, equals 2 plus 2 or equals 5 times 5, most of the time you will use cell addresses to create the formula. This is known as making a cell reference. Using cell references will ensure that your formulas are always accurate because you can change the value in a referenced cell without having to rewrite the formula. So here I have an image here. In A1 and A2, we have 10 and 5. And then in A3, we put in a simple formula equals A1 plus A2. So when you type in that formula in a new cell equals A1 plus A2, you are telling Excel to add the values in A1 and A2 and put the value itself in A3. So when you hit enter after typing in your basic formula, you'll see that Excel does the math for you, and A3 is now equal to 15, or the values of A1 plus A2, or 10 plus 5 equals 15. I mentioned that using cell references will ensure that your formulas are always accurate because you can change the value of a referenced cell without having to rewrite the formula. So say our A1 value has increased to 15. We can just type in the new value without having to rewrite the equals A1 plus A2. And Excel will automatically do the math for you and correct the value of A3, which is A1 plus A2. By combining a mathematical operator with cell references, you can create a variety of simple formulas in Excel. Formulas can also include a combination of cell references and numbers, as in the examples below. So here on the left-hand side of this table, I have some simple formulas or sample formulas that you can use in Excel. So if we were to type in equals A1 plus A2 into A3, in A3, we will see the value of A1 plus A2, or the cells are A1 plus A2 added together. Equals C4 minus 3 subtracts 3 from whatever the value is displayed in C4. Equals E7 divided by J4 divides the cell E7 by J4. So you always want to be careful which order you are putting in your formulas and your cell references. You always want to follow the mathematical rules. So if you wanted E7 to be divided by J4, J4 is last. If you wanted it opposite, J4 divided by E7, it would be J4 slash E7. equals N10 times 1.05 multiplies the value in cell N10 by 1.05. And then finally, equals R5 caret 2 finds the square of cell R5. I mentioned that we'll be using the Autosum function tonight. I just wanted to provide a little bit of information about the sum function. The sum function adds values. You can add individual values, cell references or ranges, or a mix of all three. For example, if you were to put equals sum from B2 to B12 into a cell, this will add the values in the cells B2 to B12, so that includes B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, B7, B8, B9, B10, B11, and B12. And then it'll display the sum of all of those cells into B13 if that's where you've placed your formula. If you wanted to do something a little bit more complex, such as equal sum B2 to B12 and D3 to D10, this will add values in the cells B2 to B12 as well as the cells D3 to D10. And when we move on to the practice that I sent everyone, I'll show you how you can select the cell ranges when you are using an Autosum or a sum function. Autosum is when Excel automatically enters a formula that uses the sum function to sum the numbers. And if you wanted a little bit more information about the sum function, you can click this link in the PDF file I sent you, and it will take you to Microsoft's website that explains the sum function a little bit better. To sum a column of numbers, select the cell immediately below the last number of the column, or I'm sorry, the last number in the column. To sum a row of numbers, select the cell immediately to the right at the end of the row of numbers. And then Autosum is in two locations. You can find it in a shortcut in the Home ribbon, all the way, I believe it's all the way to the right. And then you can also find it in the Formulas tab on the ribbon, and it'll have a large sigma. So the Autosum is a capital sigma, or that kind of funky E. When you want to use Autosum, like I said, if you were summing a column of numbers, you select the cell immediately below the last number in the column. You'll click that Autosum button either in your Home or Formula tab, and then Excel will automatically add all of the numbers within the column. And then again, for a row, you select the cell immediately to the right of the end of a row of numbers, click Autosum, and then it will automatically add everything for you. A complex formula has more than one mathematical operator. For example, I have equals 5 plus 10 times 2, which is considered a complex formula. When creating formulas in Excel, it is important to remember the order of operations, or PEMDAS. In high school, I remembered it as "please excuse my dear Aunt Sally," as a mnemonic device to remember the order of operations. But P equals parentheses, so anything found in a parentheses will be computed first, followed by any exponents, then multiplication, then division, then addition, and then finally subtraction. So in this complex formula here, to complete this formula, we would have to do the multiplication first, so 10 times 2, and then plus 5. So it would be 25 as the answer. It is important to enter complex formulas with the correct order of operations. Excel will not calculate the results accurately if you place the equation out of order. If the parentheses are not included, multiplication is calculated first and the result is incorrect. So say in this formula, we wanted 5 plus 10 to be the first operation. we would have to put that in parentheses. So that'll tell Excel that we want 5 plus 10 to be computed first, and then that value will be multiplied by 2. Parentheses are the best way to define which calculations must be performed first in Excel. This part's a little bit tricky, but it's kind of going back to your, I guess it would be pre-calc, or maybe, boy, I don't even know what math class it would be, but back to when you were studying math in elementary or high school, and just remembering the order of operations. I always like to say parentheses can be your friends, or it can be your enemy as well. So whenever you're creating a complex formula, you really want to think about what you're telling Excel to do. So using this as an example, just typing in 5 plus 10 times 2, without the parentheses, like I said, it'll be 10 times 2 first, and then adding 5 to that value. But if we wanted 5 plus 10 to be computed first, we would have to put those in parentheses to get the correct value that we're looking for. In the example below, I demonstrate how Excel solves a complex formula using the order of operations. Here we want to calculate the cost of tax for a food order. To do this, we'll write our formula as equals in parentheses D2 plus D3 plus D4 times 0.06 in cell D5. So you can see that here. I created a very simple chart of menu items, their prices, the quantity, and then in this column is the total of the quantity plus the price. To compute the tax, I am telling Excel to add all 3 totals first, multiply that value by 0.06 to calculate a 6% tax rate, as in Chester County. I know we don't really tax food, but just for giggles, we're going to say that there's a 6% tax rate on food. So once you type in that complex formula, you'll press enter on your keyboard, and then it'll enter in your tax in that in D5. You can see that here. And then I created the total, or I found the total by clicking Autosum. So I added D2, D3, D4, and D5 together to get the total cost of the meal, which is $19.67. We're going to take it a little bit further and calculate a 20% tip for the bill. So we're moving down to D7 now, which is this top picture here. I added another row to the table. First, we select the cell that will contain the complex formula, which is D7. And you enter in your formula, which is equals parentheses D6, which is the grand total, including tax, times 0.20, which is that 20% tip. And then we're tacking on a plus D6 after the parentheses to tell Excel that we're adding that 20% of D6 to D6 to get a grand total with tip. You always want to double check your formula for accuracy. So make sure you have your parentheses and you inserted your percentages correct. So percentages are a little bit tricky to enter at first, but you just move the decimal point over. So 20%, we're going to move it over 2 spots. And then you have 0.20. Once you've confirmed that you've entered in your complex formula correctly, you'll press enter on your keyboard and Excel will do the math for you. And it'll tell you it is 23.61 or $23.61, which is the 1967 total plus a 20% tip. All right, so do we have any questions about this kind of quick how to calculate tax and tip using complex formulas as an example? I threw a lot at you. It can be really overwhelming and very confusing. So before we move on to the balancing a checkbook, does anyone have any questions about the complex formulas I used in that example? All right, so I'm going to open up Excel and we're going to work through the practice that I sent everyone together. And then feel free to always ask questions along the way as I work through the worksheet with you or the practice with you. So we're just going to open up a blank workbook. All right, I'm gonna increase so that it's a little bit easier for you to see. Okay, so step one is to enter the following texts in the cells as indicated. So this first step is just to create a table. It may seem a little bit silly at first, but it'll make sense once you start to put it all together. So in A1, you're going to type your name and checkbook. In A3, so we're going to move down 2 cells to A3. We're going to type in CK period number sign. That's just for a check number. In B3, so we're moving over a column, we're going to type in the word date. In C, moving over another column, we're going to type in item description. And you'll see, since item description is longer than the cell size, it'll look like it's cutting it off, but we'll fix that in a minute. In D3, we're going to type in the word debit. In column E3, we're going to type in the word credit. In F3, we're going to type just a capital letter X. And then in G3, we are going to type in the word balance. In step 2 of the practice, I have you modify the column widths for columns A through F. And instead of selecting the auto fit column width, we can play around with Excel skills that we covered in the first iteration of this class. And we're going to tell Excel how exactly we want the widths to be for each column. And we'll do that for columns A through G. I made a mistake in the type up. It should be through columns A through F, columns A through G, not columns A through F. So first we have to select the entire column, and we'll do that by clicking its letter up top. And once you do that, you can see that the entire column has been highlighted. So for A, we want the size to be 5. And to do that, once you have your column selected, you'll move over to Format, and then click Column Width. And this little box will pop up, and we'll just type in the numbers as indicated on the practice sheet. B is 12. C is 30. D is 10, which it should already be 10. E, I believe, is 10 as well, so we'll just leave it be. F is 1, so we'll type in a 1. And then G is 12, so we'll click G to highlight the whole column, Format, column width, and G is 12. Great, okay. So once all of our columns are sized based on the recommendation on the sheet or the practice, we're going to move on to step 3, which is entering information below in the rows and columns indicated. So starting with row 4, we do not have a check number. we have a date, which is the 11th of February. So you're just going to type in 2-11-2021. And then the item description is tax return. And there is no information in debit. And in credit, we're going to type in the number 450. Ignore columns F and G for now. That's for when we want to play around with complex formulas. So let's go through and just enter in the rest of the information, and we'll enter in down to row 13. So row 5, check 108. Date is the 12th of February 2021. This description is car payment. $350 debit. Row 6 does not have a check number. Excuse me. Date 2/13/2021. And this description is February paycheck. And that is credited $1,500. Row 7, check 109. Date is the 13th of February, 2021. Item description is rent. Rent is $8.50.50, and that'll be a debit. Row 8 does not have a check number. Still on the 13th of February. We have an ATM withdrawal. And that's 100 in the debit column. Row 9 is check 110, is on the 15th of February, and that is groceries. And that is $135.89 in the debit column. Row 10 does not have a check number, and we're on the 15th of February. And this is a cash deposit for $250. Row 11 is check 111. And this is on the 17th of February. And this is labeled as a target run for $45.67 as a debit. Row 12 is check 112. And this is the 18th of February, 2021. And this is for medication, $50.25. And then row 13 is check 113 on the 19th of February. And this is for a wedding gift, debited at $150. All right, so now we have all of our information for the dates, the imaginary items and debits and credits and dates. So next we're going to format the data to show dollars and cents for all entries in columns D, E, and G. So columns D, E are our debit and credit, and then G will be our balance. So we want these numbers in this column, in these columns, to be depicted as money. So we want a dollar sign with cents. So the first step is to select all columns indicated, and you can use the Control or Command key to select multiple columns at once. So we'll click D, and then while holding down Control or Command, we'll click E and then G. So there are two ways to select or to tell Excel that you want this to be displayed as money. The easiest way is just to click this dollar sign here, and you can see a dollar sign has been added and cents have been tacked on to the numbers that did not have. So anything like 350 has 2 zeros at the end. If you don't want to do it this way, you will click down from this menu here, and you can click either currency or accounting. And currency is used for general monetary values. Accounting is typically used for more complex monetary values. For this assignment, either one will work. And when you click the $sign, it automatically chooses accounting for you. And now we're going to format the checkbook by adding borders and shading as desired. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to merge and center this top row so that my name is in the middle. And then I will click and drag from A1 to, we want to go to, I believe we have to go to G14 because we'll have a total at the end. So once you have your entire table highlighted, you're going to go up to the borders, which we were playing with last week, and then click all borders, and then I'll add a nice border around your table for you. Now we are going to start using formulas, basic and complex. So step 1 is to enter the formulas below in the cells as indicated. So in cell G4, which is the cell here, we are going to type in equals minus D4 plus E4. So this will just give us our starting balance, which is a credit of $450. And then in G5, we are going to type equals G4, G4, subtract D5 plus E5. And then when you do this, you could see that Excel selects them. And when you type in G4, it is highlighted blue. When you type in D5, it is highlighted red. And then E5 is purple and D5 is red. Hit enter. And then you can see 350 was subtracted from 450, and our balance now is $100. So if you were to, in the next step, I say copy the same formula from G5 to cells G6 through G13. Use Control plus C or Command plus C, and Control plus V or Command plus V shortcuts to copy the formula. And this is really handy. Excel will automatically fix the cell ranges for you as you move down the table. Excel's smart enough that it realizes what you're doing. So to copy the formula G4 minus D5 plus E5, you're just going to select your cell G5. Command C is copy. So you've copied the formula. Move down to G6 and then click Command or Control V, and then it creates it for you. So you'll see this little window pop up, and it's asking you, it's basically telling you you can use like the destination theme, which is just keeping within, it'll change the cell values for you. So you can see it's G5 minus D6 plus E6 instead of D5 plus E, G4 minus D5 plus E5. If for some reason your Excel is not automatically figuring the math out for you, I have written down the formulas that you would have to enter in by hand. So in cell G7, we're going to type in G6 minus D7 plus E7. I'm just going to copy and paste all the way down, to G13. All right. So our remaining balance is $517.69. If for some reason you spent more money than you had, and say we owed $517, there would be a little minus sign there. So if there's like a negative number, so like a negative 115, it's just telling you that you are short 115. So when there is no negative, it just means that you have $517.69 left in your balance. Our final step is using the Autosum tool, and we're going to use this on cells D4, D14 and E14, and this is going to get the totals for our debit and credit on this imaginary checkbook. So we want to enter these into cells D14 and E14. So we'll start with D14. Make sure you've selected that cell just below 150 in D13. And then you are going to click the Autosum symbol, which is a capital sigma. It is very handy to have a shortcut here on your home tab, but if you don't see it, you can find it in your formulas tab on your ribbon. You click that, it's going to be a little bit bigger and it'll say Autosum. So if you click Autosum, you'll see that Excel automatically jumps to D11, D12 to D13 because those are the nearest cells with values. But we want to add everything from D4 to D13. So we'll click and drag all the way down from D4 to D13. And you can see that it is highlighted in blue, and the formula is equals sum, parentheses D4 and D13. If you want to do it the long way, you can type this in. So if you start typing in a formula like sum, it'll pop up here. You want to do it all in caps. So we put in equals sum. Now we'll do parentheses, and we want to start with D4, colon, to D13, and parentheses. And you can see Excel dropped in that blue square we saw earlier. And just hit enter on your keyboard to get a total. And we will do the same in E14 for credits. So we have equals, type in the word sum, parentheses, E4, colon, to E13, and parentheses. Or we can click Autosum and then highlight the whole table that we want to be added and hit enter on your keyboard. And that is creating or balancing a basic imaginary checkbook using complex and simple formulas. So we use complex formulas here to figure out our balances between the credits and debits. And then we used a simple Autosum function or formula to figure out our total debit and our total credit. Do we have any questions about this practice or how to use complex formulas or how to use the Autosum function? Okay, while you type in any questions you might have, I just want to provide you with a final product. There is a very small mistake. I wrote March paycheck instead of February paycheck, but this is exactly what we did, and it should be the same exact numbers that we figured out tonight. I also wanted to provide my contact information as well as contact information for the library. So you can email me at any time if you're working through Excel on your own and you stumble across a question or a concern. Feel free to email me. If you would like more assistance than just a quick email, you can schedule a one-on-one session by clicking that link below. I have times available Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. It is an hour-long session tailored to your needs. So this goes beyond the Excel course if you're interested. And then this is information for Tredyffrin Public Library, as well as Paoli Library and our website. I'll hang around for a few more minutes. If you have any lingering questions about the practice or anything I covered tonight, Our final class for Excel will be next week, and we'll cover some more complex skills as well as playing around with the templates that are provided by Excel. Thanks so much for joining me tonight.